All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and today we're
Hmm.
going to be talking about self-directed learning.
Okay.
Um, More specifically, learning English solo, so going it alone.
Oh, yeah.
And our source material for this one is going to be a YouTube video
Yeah.
by Luis Talagrand. It's called How to Learn English by Yourself, No Teacher Needed.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's really interesting because Luis is actually a French
Yeah.
speaker who successfully taught themselves English.
Wow. Impressive.
Pretty inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Self-taught success stories are always really
Yeah.
motivating.
Yeah, so we're going to try to break down their method and see
Oh,
if we can pull out any takeaways
sure.
that you can apply to any skill, not just language learning.
Right. Yeah. I think there's always a lot to learn from those kinds of journeys.
Totally. Yeah. And one of the first things that Luis talks about is this thing called the 25252525 rule.
Okay. What's that?
And I have to say, I'm not usually a fan of,
Well, yeah.
rigid formulas when it comes to learning, but
Yeah.
this one kind of piqued my interest.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's not just about dividing your time. It's more like they're highlighting the importance of like a balanced approach.
I see.
What do you think?
Well, it makes me think of that saying, knowledge is not power.
Oh, yeah.
Applied knowledge is power.
Right.
And I think what Luis is emphasizing here is that it's not enough to just take in information passively
Right.
to really master any skill you need to
Why?
balance that input
Yeah.
with output
Okay.
and then back it up with, focused practice and fluency development.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of those input power moves
Okay.
Luis talks about.
Yeah.
These sound like some seriously effective techniques.
I'm all ears.
All right. So one that really stuck out to me was repetitive listening.
Okay.
And, I think we often think of like rewatching shows or re-listening to podcasts as just kind of like passive activities.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Check
Just
it
keep
out.
going out.
Yeah.
But Luis really reframes them as active learning tools.
Interesting.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right? Each time you re-listen or rewatch,
Yeah.
you're picking up on nuances you might have missed before,
Okay.
and the vocabulary starts to stick.
Right.
It's similar to how spaced repetition works with flashcards,
Oh, yeah.
that repeated exposure helps cement the words and phrases in your memory.
Wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's a powerful technique.
It's true. I mean, I use spaced repetition for language learning all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really thought to apply it to something,
Right.
watching my favorite show,
Exactly. It's
Um,
about finding those sneaky ways to learn in your everyday life.
That's awesome. Okay, so another input technique that Lois talks about
Right.
is narrow reading.
Narrow reading, what is that?
So basically, instead of like bouncing around between different topics, you really immerse yourself in one specific area.
Gotcha.
So Lois uses the example of chess.
Okay.
By reading several books on chess, you encounter the same
Yeah.
terms and concepts repeatedly,
Right.
and that reinforces your understanding.
It's about building that deep knowledge in one area
Yeah, exactly. Like instead of just,
instead of being a jack of all trades.
yeah, exactly.
Master of none.
Yeah, so you're kind of like creating this concentrated knowledge bath for your brain.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, and this content saturation approach,
Yeah.
it's really effective for acquiring like specialized vocabulary
Absolutely.
and understanding the nuances of a particular field.
It's like becoming a mini expert, even if you're just starting out.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we've talked about input,
Mhm.
but what about output?
Right. How do we actually put this knowledge into practice?
Right, so Luis has some really interesting ideas here.
Okay, let's hear them.
One that really surprised me was sentence or dialogue memorization. Oh, interesting.
I know, right? It sounds a little bit like...
Like something out of high school drama class.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
It seems a little basic,
Yeah, but don't dismiss it too quickly.
Okay.
It might seem simple, but it's surprisingly effective.
Okay.
By internalizing phrases and expressions
Mhm.
from authentic sources like movies or TV shows,
Yeah.
you're essentially priming your brain with ready-to-use language
Right.
for a variety of situations.
I see. So it's kind of like having this mental library of pre-made phrases
Yes.
you can pull out whenever you need them.
And it goes beyond just rote memorization.
Right.
By understanding the context and the nuances of how these phrases are used in real-life situations,
Yeah.
you develop a deeper understanding of the language.
So like the next time I need to give a presentation, I could just channel my inner Don Draper.
Well, maybe adapt it slightly,
Okay, yeah, maybe.
but you get the idea.
Yeah, I get the idea. You're training your brain to think in the language
Okay.
rather than constantly translating from your native language.
That's a great point. Okay, so what other output power moves?
Well, another one that I really like is the read then write technique.
Okay, read then write.
So it's about taking what you learn from reading and immediately applying it through writing.
I like that.
So instead of just passively absorbing information, you're actively using it to create something new.
Right, so you're solidifying your understanding
Exactly.
by actually using the knowledge.
You're making it your own.
I love that. Okay, so what are we writing?
Anything, really. It
Yeah.
could be a blog post, an essay,
Okay,
even a social media update.
gotcha.
And ideally, you want to get some feedback on your writing.
Yeah, how do you do that if you're going solo?
Well, having a teacher or tutor is great,
Yeah.
but there are also tons of affordable online resources,
Like what?
language exchange websites, writing communities,
Ah.
places where you can connect with other learners and native speakers.
So you don't necessarily need a formal classroom setting to
Exactly.
get that feedback.
It's all about being resourceful.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered input, output. What about this idea of fluency?
Fluency, the holy grail.
Right, right.
Well, Louise makes a really interesting point about fluency.
Okay.
It's not just about vocabulary and grammar.
Okay.
It's also about speed.
Speed.
Being able to understand, speak, read, and write
Okay.
with a certain level of effortlessness.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So it's like the difference between knowing the steps to a dance
Right?
and being able to move gracefully across the dance floor.
I get it. It's like those simultaneous interpreters at the UN.
Exactly.
They're like mental athletes.
Yes, they're effortlessly switching between languages
Mm.
and keeping up with complex ideas in real time.
That's incredible. So how do we get to that level?
Well, Luis emphasizes the importance of practicing all 4 language skills.
Okay, listening, speaking, reading, writing.
You got it.
Makes sense. It's like working out your whole body
Exactly.
instead of just focusing on one muscle group.
You want a balanced skill set.
I like that. Okay, so are there any specific techniques for developing fluency?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Things like shadowing,
Shadowing.
where you repeat after native speakers
Okay.
to improve your pronunciation and rhythm,
Interesting.
or practicing speaking with language partners
Okay.
to build confidence and fluency in real-time conversations.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think we should do a whole deep dive
We could-
on fluency techniques in the future.
I'd be down for that.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that.
That's good.
But for now, let's move on to Luis's final category,
Okay.
deliberate study.
All right, let's get deliberate.
So this is where things get really interesting.
I'm ready.
Luis is a big proponent of flashcards,
Okay, flashcards classic.
but not just any flashcards.
Oh.
They recommend creating your own
Okay.
from content you're already engaging with.
So not those generic vocabulary lists.
Right,
I
exact
said-
textbook.
We're talking personalized flashcards.
I like it.
Tailored to your interests.
This is getting good.
Okay, so they recommend using tools like the app Lingo,
Lingo, okay.
which allows you to create flashcards
Oh.
directly from Netflix shows.
That's brilliant.
Right?
You're learning vocabulary in context.
Yeah.
And it's all tied to something you enjoy watching.
It's like turning passive entertainment into active learning.
Exactly. You're not just memorizing random words. You're learning words that are relevant to your interests.
And it reinforces that idea that learning can happen anywhere, anytime.
It's all around us.
I like that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
The 2525252525 rule. Specific input and output techniques.
Yes.
We even touched on the importance of fluency
And deliberate study.
and deliberate study.
It's been a whirlwind.
It has. And what I'm realizing is that these
Yeah.
strategies, they're not limited to just language learning. You're right. They can be applied to anything,
Anything you want to learn.
from playing an instrument to coding to starting a business.
It's all about taking ownership of
Yeah.
your learning journey,
Finding what works for you.
finding the methods that work best for you,
Yes.
and applying them consistently.
And you know what? Louise proves that even without a formal teacher
Right.
or a structured course,
Yeah.
you can achieve remarkable results through self-directed learning.
It's all about having the right mindset and
Absolutely.
applying smart strategies.
That's the key.
I love that.
Me too.
I'm feeling really inspired right now.
Me too. Let's keep this conversation going.
Definitely.
I'm excited to see what other insights we uncover.
Awesome.
Let's dive back in.
Sounds good.
You know, it's inspiring, isn't it,
Totally.
to see someone take charge of their learning like that?
It really is, and it kind of flips the script on the whole idea that we need a teacher or a classroom
Right.
to really learn something, you know?
Absolutely. And what I find fascinating about Lois's approach
Yeah.
is the emphasis on active learning.
Yes.
It's not just passively absorbing information.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with it, applying it, making it your own.
It reminds me of that concept of constructivism
Oh, yeah.
in education theory.
Where learners are actively constructing their own understanding.
Exactly.
Love it.
Through experience
Yeah.
and interacting with the material.
Not just passively receiving knowledge.
Right. So it's not enough to just read a book or watch a video.
Right.
You got to do something with that information.
Exactly.
Whether it's writing about it, discussing it with others, or using it to create something new.
And I think that's where Lois's focus on both input and output really comes into play.
Yeah, it's like learning to play a musical instrument.
Oh, yeah.
You can read all about music theory and study sheet music, but until you actually pick up the instrument and start playing, you're not really learning.
You're not internalizing it.
Exactly. And it's not just about practicing mindlessly either.
Right.
Lois talks about deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. That's key.
Being intentional, setting goals.
Yes.
Focusing on specific areas.
Pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of us kind of fall short, you know.
We get comfortable.
Yeah, it's easy to just stick to what we're good at.
Right. Because it feels good to succeed.
Exactly.
But real growth happens when we embrace the challenge.
Yes. And Lois' journey is a testament to that.
Absolutely. They didn't shy away from challenges.
No.
They actively sought them out.
And there's that quote, the only way to do great work is to love what you do.
I love that quote.
If you're passionate about something
Yeah.
and you really enjoy the process,
You're more likely to stick with it.
you're going to see it through.
Exactly.